We now move to the panel discussion part of the evening, and I'd also like to welcome a fifth panellist who hasn't spoken yet, and that's Alistair McGregor, also of CEVO Australia, so please give him a warm welcome. Now, what I'd like to do, because rather than just direct a question to particular people, feel free to put up a hand when I do fire off a question if you'd like to answer it. You have one microphone to share among all of you, so no fighting. And there will also be a floating microphone around here as well. It's great if you can shout out your question if you must and you cannot wait, but the microphone does help with producing the final edited product because we can hear you when it comes to audio. I just wanted to mention, I'm a journalist, and after listening to everybody speak, isn't there risk to manage for businesses? Because continuous delivery and getting something out really fast is like building a 6-star hotel and checking people in while it's under construction. Aren't you worried about the reviews?
Does that work? Yep. Well, like I say, they're actually doing that right now down at Barangaroo. They're doing it floor by floor, and Westpac and various companies already moved in. And while they're doing the upper levels, and I guess that's kind of like an agile development project going on right now. So this is possible in hardware and software and pretty much anything you want to talk about. I mean, I'm coming from it from the business point of view. I mean, my background was originally as a programmer, but I've been in software engineering companies for the last 25 years. And for the last 15, it's all been agile development for me. I think most of the people in the room are software developers, is that right?
Show of hands for software developers in the room.
And
there's one on every table.
We're talking about CI and CD and so on, but if I take it back a little bit, I guess this is all driven out of the agile world and agile development. And are most people here familiar with that and what that is? And do you mostly do it, or are you from a waterfall background, or? You say you do it, okay. I mean, I think one of the questions was, what's the difference between being agile and agile? And
yes, the question that I was going to aim at you was, there was an article online that had the headline, "Stop doing agile and start being agile."
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
I guess, and a lot of companies do that too, which is they get everybody trained in how to be Scrum Masters and all this sort of stuff. But essentially, and that's following the ceremonies of agile, having stand-ups and doing showcases and so on, but not actually being agile, which is more a mindset and being committed to what you're doing. What we talk about here with tools and CI and CD, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, is essentially doing development vertically rather than horizontally. And we talk about Barangaroo, I guess they're doing vertical development where they're doing it floor by floor, complete floors, completed, and then people can move in. And that's where agile software development is kind of similar, in that you're doing a complete part of the system and it can actually then be deployed into production. And then you're just adding incrementally to that. And that's the power of it. And what this is all about, and to me anyway, as a business person, is it's about speed to market, get to market, beat your competitors, get out there. And as Mridul was talking about, inventory management, which is where Scrum and Lean and all this comes from years ago, which is essentially you're investing lots of money in developing features, but then it just sits on the shelf until you deploy the entire system. What you want to be doing is investing that money and getting it into market as soon as you can and getting a return on that investment.
Again, you said just what you finished on is like getting it into market, and I suppose that's one of the big challenges that more monolithic established corporate businesses face compared to startups, because wouldn't there be still a feeling that it's the second mouse who gets the cheese?
I don't want to dominate this, by the way, if anybody else wants to
Would
answer
somebody
that.
else from the panel like to respond to the cheese quote?
I'm not sure if I should after that comment. And yes, it probably is the second mouse that gets the cheese, unless the first mouse doesn't make mistakes or has learnt from the previous mouse that's gone before it. And that's where we talk about the fact that with CI and CD, you have to learn. You know, the term, or the phrase really, is fail fast. But learn from your mistakes. It's not fail fast, fail often, and then fail again. Unless you're learning, and to use your Barangaroo quote, or story, or analogy really, if the first floor is being built and you're not learning from your mistakes, you're building a development on shaky foundations. And really with CI/CD, unless you have that monitoring in place to tell you that you failed, and then you can actually fix it, and that, the whole concept of feedback loops, fail fast, fail often, learn, apply the fix, and then repeat the process. That's really what it comes down to. So that if you are the second mouse, yes, there is cheese to be gotten, unless you're the first person there, and you've won the race.
Very good. Simon, did you want to back up a comment on that? I thought you did for a minute.
No, you covered everything there.
Well, how is putting customers in control of ongoing cycles of software working out for businesses really? I mean, it's one thing to promote it, but what's the reality of actually doing it?
I guess I can have a go at that one. But having been mucking around in IT for like last 25 years or so, seen most ways of software projects and how they've gone, and various ways of what processes to follow and so on. Agile, once you buy into it, then there's no going back, because essentially you are getting to market very quickly. As is it Brian? Sorry, as Grant said, I mean, the feedback loops, fail fast, fail early, and continue to do that and incrementally build your system. Why it works better is because, and you must absolutely do this, is that the business must buy in. It's totally collaborative. People talk about collaborations and then still throw it over the fence to the developers and say, okay, we're collaborating, you go ahead and deliver it, and I'll see you in 6 months' time. And then, surprise, surprise, it's not what they wanted, everybody's shocked, and it's been a total waste of money. Essentially what I talk to a business about and make sure up front that they buy in. And they have to have a product owner who represents the business, and they're on the project because it's their project. And they're delivering their product to market. And if they're not involved, then they're not going to get what they want. It's as simple as that. And if you're not prepared to do that, by the way, then as a software vendor or as a vendor, you walk away because they're not ready. And they shouldn't get involved either because they're going to mess up. So it really is about collaboration and buy-in on both sides. And then you will succeed. But if you go into it thinking, oh, this Agile stuff's really good, we're going to get to market really fast, and all I have to do is tell them what to do and then go away, you will fail for sure.
Question down in the corner. Thank you very much.
I don't know if I'm all that equipped to ask this question. I think, firstly, great moderation. So just come back to Agile and user experience. It seems to me that there's a contradiction. You've got to know what you want to do before you start doing it, but Agile says do it anyway. So I just want to hear it from the panel. To what extent do you manage that contradiction in a CI/CD framework, and how do you resolve the test strategies around ultimately delivering the UX outcome that was intended?
Thank you, Mridul.
Yeah, I think the point you said is be sure before you start doing something. I think you always got to have an idea. What Agile says is you got to have some idea to take you to a stage. Then you actually build on it and create a new idea. It says do not plan for next 10 years. You can have a roadmap, but do not plan concrete plans for that. So CI/CD is just a way to deliver the same thing, to make sure that things are easily done, and when you make mistakes, you easily realize it, right? So if you have that 10 years plan, you would not have a space, or breathing space, actually, to fix the mistakes you made. So that's where you don't make that bigger plan. And that's where the word agile comes in. I'm not talking about the process agile, I'm talking about the word agility, right? So you're gonna learn, you gotta have that breathing space when you make some mistakes, fix it, and then move on. You just need some good tools to be able to do that. That's what CI/CD is giving you. Did that answer your question?
Closing the loop on UX.
Okay, I think I've seen UX being very involved in this, and they've benefited a lot. We used to do, quite a few years back, we used to do this big UX research. We used to have all the templates ready, and then we used to do some user testing on 100 users, only to realize those are the minority of users I did my testing on. My sampling size was not good enough, or my sampling was not properly scattered, right? So what happens is you've got a pretty big prototype already ready, which when you launch, realize does not work because the user's mindset have changed. If you made a prototype 3 years back for an old phone, users with the new phone won't be able to use it, or probably they won't like it, right? So you gotta have that interactive users feedback, and the best way of getting that interactive user feedback is through UX, and that's where it shines.
It does still seem to me to be quite risky for businesses to do it. So I'm going to ask the panel to offer up a good example of success and a terrible example of failure of businesses who have gone to market extremely early using the CI/CD system. I was encouraged to... All right, I'm hitting the space bar. Hopefully that will work. To grab... It's not working? Do you want me to hit an arrow key? To get this app that would give you a free bottle of wine at these various restaurants. And I downloaded the app immediately and it didn't work. So I gave them 1 star, said crap app, and I never went back. So this whole fail fast thing didn't work on me. So how do you counter that? I'm just giving myself as a customer for the B2B audience that's here. Oh, and the other one too, I just want to add, TripAdvisor. I said, what's happened to your app? 1 star, crap app. It's all got really small text, and now it's when I move my phone, because I'm quite blind, it's too big and I can't read it. There's valuable information I need. Crap app. And then they wrote to me personally and then said, we've now fixed the bug because we weren't mobile ready in order to cope with the movement of the phone. So then I gave them a new review of 5 stars. But is this common, or is this what businesses are fearful of by throwing things out into the market so early?
I think there's a few different ways to answer the question. I was thinking about your scenarios. You say a strong use case, a bad use case. I'll talk about your typical iPhone apps, which personally, when I look across the industry, I think it's fantastic, right? iPhone's renowned for strong, consistent, easy, and fast to market. And I would almost argue, okay, you had a little bit of a bad experience, but think about the good experience you had in you, an individual here in Australia. You said, hey, TripAdvisor, you've done something wrong. Do right by me. And they actually make that change at your request. Of course, you think it's just for yourself, but it's probably 10,000 people asking. But the point is, you're thinking this is great, it's a two-way street. There's a company here who, huge global company, huge global footprint, that's listening to the individuals and making that change, which has been possible by the CIDC. And I suppose to the flip side, I would look at, I like using the iPhone apps type approach. But then you look at something like Windows 10, I'm like, well, I'm glad they're trying to push ahead, but maybe a little bit, too far ahead. So, I definitely think there's a balance to and fro.
Yes, Mridul.
I've got one thing to say to you. Are you a TripAdvisor customer now?
It's called TripGo, sorry, but it's not TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
Yes, I am, and I absolutely love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if they hadn't produced that crappy app, you might not have been with them right now, would you?
Very true. Did anyone else have, for the audience, an example of a client or a customer they're working with where it's been so incredibly successful to go out with something that's not, I guess, market ready in many ways?
I suppose, yeah, I'm not going to name the customer, that is not market ready. But really, when you do release something quickly and it is not market ready, the only thing that you can do is monitor it and be able to, again, from feedback loops, close it quickly. So when your customers do complain about it, act on it. You can have the experience of someone who's trying to pay a bill online, having that monitored process where it does fail. Having someone then look at it, not just say it's failed, try again, which a lot of government departments do because you got nowhere else to go to pay them money. But for companies that are reliant on that revenue, to be able to say, hey, you know what, we noticed you tried to pay it, it didn't work. How about we help relieve you of that money that you're trying to give us, rather than have you go to a competitor. But unless you have that ability to monitor it and to act on it, you lose. You will be the second mouse. In fact, you'll be no mouse at the end.
Does anyone else have a good or bad example? Oh, there's a question here for the panel.
In terms of beginning with the end in mind, but recognising that you need to release in stages to be agile and move fast. So you come to the market early with your stage 1. And so I wanted to raise the challenge of the risk in that by sort of showing your cards too early, by presenting your phase 1 and then potential competitors looking at that and going, oh, hang on, we've got some great ideas about how we can systemise and take that further and do it better. So then it puts it on the radar, and then they come in, and while you're already working on your phase 2, 3, built in terms of those release stages, but you've shown your cards by releasing your phase 1.
Very good. That's a scary proposition for a business.
I think on a strategic point of view, a lot of business would not really reveal their strategies early. When they reveal their cards, it means they are very ready to reveal the second card and play the game. At the same time, we don't live in a world where we used to have one person entering into the market and capitalize it for a long time. So if somebody builds up an app, tomorrow a relevant sized company would build the same app and come up. It's not like the first person wins the game. Here what's happening is everybody gets a fair share of the pie. Like I use a budgeting app on my phone. If tomorrow another budgeting app comes, I'll still go and try it, or maybe my friends would use it. This world is a little changing in terms of how IT is being incorporated into everyday life, because things are changing so fast. You can't really say, I just want to hold my cards back. You never know, somebody's already going to play that card even before you do. And it's better to at least play a card.
Question down this side here again. Thank you.
Hi guys. Okay, so cool. So sold on the CI/CD, and you're turning around. I'm in a big corporate. I want to make a change. Now, from everything that gets talked about, it seems like such a huge mindset difference, but also a difference to the stack, that it's kind of we literally throw everything out that we currently have, and we build something new, and then we start being able to iterate stuff. And the risk kind of jump there to turn around and say, I'm going to go move to an entirely new stack and then shift all my applications across, seems almost insurmountable from a corporate level. So what are the strategies that you can take within a corporate to turn around and say, I can make a baby step, or I can make a step along this journey without having to turn around and say, I'm going to rebuild my entire infrastructure and then just start fresh?
Yeah, I'll answer that one, because I think it's right up the alley of the environment automation. It's what we have done, and what I've seen done in a number of different organisations. Now, it seems to be a bit of a recurring theme is start with development, start with your development and test. The areas where you've got the most volatility and the most need to have the ability to make and integrate and push change through and run multiple different streams of change. So transform those areas first. One of the things you do in doing so is you start to make your development test systems look less and less like your current traditionally provisioned infrastructure system. So that is a real problem. But with the technologies we use now, it's actually not a very big problem. And in fact, a lot of the testing we already do is done on desktops, is done even on Windows and Eclipse and those types of tools, which are different from where you're going to run it in production anyway. So you can definitely start with your development and test activities, transform the way they work. And in fact, you really need to do that before you understand the differences it's going to make to the way you run and manage your systems, and way you run and manage your software, and the way maybe you should be looking at re-architecting some of your software platforms to take better advantage of the type of commoditized infrastructure you're running on in the cloud. So you definitely start there and then start pushing forward. That's one way to go about it. The other way that is becoming more apparent, there's certain types of environments used for certain specific purposes. For training users, we often need an environment which has got the functionality of production but doesn't necessarily need to have the same non-functional characteristics. So but we need them at a point in our life cycle. It's actually very difficult to fit in with the amount of change that we're pushing through and the windows that we have going through to production. So training type systems or customer acceptance type systems can work very, very well, being provisioned and managed in a completely different way from our traditional delivery pipeline. So start at the start of the delivery pipeline and progressively work your way through to production.
What are the advantages to, instead of... Oh, okay, sorry. Hiding behind the cameraman.
Renee, why don't you continue with your question?
No, I insist. Okay. You do yours.
Okay, so look, here's the dilemma. Fail quickly, take risk, put your company at risk, put yourself at risk. There's a trade practices obligation here. Has anyone forgotten about trade practices? Does it matter? And it's a sincere question, and I'll just declare my position first, because it's important that I do. I'm an SME small to medium enterprise that embarked upon a new service, I'm personally accountable. I'm suable, and the legislation doesn't protect me. Now, I don't have a team of legal professionals. I'm exposed. So my question to the panel is, to what extent does risk assessment come into this, and is trade practices something that we still need to adhere to?
Thank you. Who would like to tackle that?
I've still got the microphone, so. I think there can be a perception with continuous integration and continuous delivery that quality is compromised. And I think everyone on the panel would agree that we're actually talking about the absolute opposite. Quality is number one in anything that's done with software delivery and is never compromised in any sort of way. However, to achieve quality in the past, before agile development and before continuous delivery, we used to rely very heavily on really brute force, heavyweight mechanisms to do that, which slowed down our whole delivery pipeline, restricted our ability to have change. In fact, change became the enemy. If you didn't like a UX, that's great, because we're coming out with a new one in 2 years' time. So Agile is all about maintaining quality while embracing change and changing all of your processes to support the way humans manage change. So quality is never compromised.
Any other questions on that SME touchy topic and legality? Well, I was also going to ask, what are the real benefits for originating in a cloud as opposed to creating outside of it, and then, or is that the whole point of getting it out there and getting it out there fast? I mean, if you go away and make it and then keep tinkering with it, is that worse than whacking it up in the cloud first and building it there? Sorry. Placing into the cloud.
Natively built, yes. So it looks like this one's been pointed to me by the nature of our native SaaS service. And look, when I talk with our founders about why they developed in the cloud, why they built it as a SaaS service, they said, look, of course in the context of CI/CD, it's logical, it's easy, we remove any risk from the customers. I've been doing demonstrations to customers before where I'll click through different pages and all of a sudden there's a full new feature set, which from my point of view is kind of frightening because I don't know what it is. But the point is there was no impedance on the customer. There was no impact to the customer negatively, yet they come in the next morning, new features, new functionality. This is something that if you have an on-premise solution, then you need to go through your testing cycles, your updates, and validate that it's not going to break anything or interfere with any other component within your infrastructure stack or application stack. By the nature of being a SaaS service, it allows us to take control of the core system. We take all the risk, and yet the customers just get the good benefits of the features, the release, the continuous updates and delivery that we put into the market today. And I think it's really important that to be built natively from the cloud service is completely different to a lot of other, I suppose, I don't want to say competitors, but other solutions in the market today, because where we see companies struggle is when, okay, we choose one path or we choose the other. Are we going to fully commit to the cloud, or are we going to be a company that takes two routes? Now, the challenge of this, and what a lot of the founders and our developers tell me, is they say, look, even other companies in the market today, even if they could match our features and functionality, to actually build a true multi-tenant scalable solution. And when I say like true multi-tenant scale, we're ingesting upwards of about 60 terabytes a day. Yet to every single customer globally, we guarantee the performance, we guarantee the scale. So what our founders tell me is they say, look, for someone else to actually do this, sure, someone can somehow mimic what we've done, but then you have brand recognition that comes in, and people need to give confidence in that service. Just like the actual cloud service today, where a lot of people have been burnt before the AWSs of the likes come to this region. And everyone said, hey, I went on with these smaller little cloud-hosted companies that had a bad experience, whether it was lack of infrastructure or experience. But when you look at a truly scalable brand, recognized service, that takes time to build. So that's my comments. Anyone else? Anyone else?
I was going to add or ask as well, in order to transform the experience from a negative one to a positive one, what is the strategy or the magic or the trick to move out of the arena of fixing bugs and move into adding features for customers?
Really is listen to the market, by monitoring what the customers are saying. I was at a large financial institution, and they had monitoring everywhere. And one of the key things that they monitored was Twitter. And that gave them a faster feedback than customers calling in, because for this particular financial institution, if an ATM went down, they found out about it on Twitter faster than they did from their ops guys. So what they did was they went, well, if that's the fastest mechanism that we have to get an ATM down alert, let's just build it into our alerting platform. So it's listening to what the customer is actually saying, listening to what they're doing as well. Unless you're then, which just for us is just data ingestion. You want to have the analytics and the smarts behind it to do something about it, and then building in the automation on top of that to react quickly to it. So it is monitor and react, and then as you react quicker, becoming predictive. So if an ATM goes down frequently at a certain time of day, and having the automation behind it, to bring it back up quickly.
Thank you very much. We're getting a second microphone. Thank you.
Glad you asked that question. I'm curious. I hear about the application, the ATM being down, but then isn't there a break in the go way back? I'm only 25. No, just joking. The OSI model, because we're talking about infrastructure and above, but we forget all of the layers, the 3 or 4 layers that are under it. Is any of your software or any of your test plans or anything that you do actually monitors and manage all the layers? Because I think with this day and time, with software, with cloud is just a marketing term. We all know it. It's just compute in another data center that you cannot see. We can go on cloud, we can go whatever. It's just compute somewhere else that you can't see. That's all the cloud. Is there any way that you can with any of your software, with any of your processes, that you actually monitor and manage all of the OSI layers rather than just layer 4 and above?
Okay, I would say, and just to delineate, so where Grant's coming from, this might help with people's perceptions as well. So Grant's talking about Dynatrace. Dynatrace is an application performance management solution. Their strength and where they focus is really down into your JVMs, so your Java virtual machines, your .NET CLRs, and they give that class and method level visibility. SumoLogic, we don't have that visibility, but what do we collect? Log and machine data. And we've moved away from saying we collect log data because we feel we're pigeonholing ourselves. Because whether it's, as I mentioned before, network traffic, or whether it's we're querying an API, whether you have your hardware devices sending us SNMP traps, we don't care where it comes from. And this is kind of the strength of having a big data system. We're data agnostic. We don't mind where it comes from. So it's kind of funny when you brought up the OSI stack. I was thinking, okay, well, it's been a while since I thought about that. List through them all. But generally speaking, I would say, yeah, that's right. Good way to mention it. Generally speaking, I would say, yeah, we'd reasonably safely say we would cover off all stacks, because whether you're looking at, say, a customer experience perspective or, say, the presentation layer, sure, there's always metrics or some type of output that's coming from that. We can ingest that, we can interpret that, because we're really in the game of data manipulation in my space. And as I said, being data agnostic, I don't mind which layer it comes from. It might just be the different protocol or different method to ingest that data, but being the game of data manipulation, I would say we predominantly cover all layers. So I might just pass around to see what Grant has to say as well, just to chime in. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Fantastic. Just to add to that point, yes, Dynatrace does cover layer 1 to 7, or 2 to 7. Actually, we don't cover layer 1. We do it from the application layer with looking at the containers with their JVMs or CLRs, but we also have network monitors that do from layer 2 to 7. So we can tell you about not just the applications traversing the stack or the protocols, but also look at the TCP information as well. So yeah, we do cover it. Yeah, we don't hit level 1, but we find 2 to 7 covers the market quite well.
And I will mention, I used to actually work with Grant about 5 years ago, so the technology's changed a bit, so I'm glad he filled in the gaps.
I can't help myself. I had to ask, I heard an actual client name over there. What's the Domino's story? Did someone say, oh no?
Back in my engineering days, what we did was to memorize the OSI model. We would say, all people seem to need Domino's pizza. So it's application, presentation, people seem session, presentation. Oh God, I forgot. I got to write it out. system, network systems, data link, and physical.
Right.
So I'll write it out if you know, and then I'll forget it, but I skipped a layer or two. So yeah, everyone knows. So open systems interconnection is the term for acronym for OSI.
Right. Are there any other questions from the floor? Because I was just going to throw then a crazy quiz question to the panel. Imagine VW International has approached you and they really, really want to rush this thing to market. How would one of you sit down and strategize with that kind of, I suppose, international disaster that's happened?
When you're doomed, you're doomed.
See, but that's it, fail fast. They didn't fail fast, they failed over a long period of time.
Well, the idea is, I mean, they failed fast. They knew they had a problem. At some point, someone should have just been hit at the back of the head and say, don't build that switch. How about fixing the problem? So they knew there was an issue, but they still wanted to rush it to market. And rushing it to market, acknowledging the risks, and then still deciding that you want to go ahead, really, from an ethics point of view, that's kind of sketchy. Oh, no, it's illegal.
Yes, because the data wasn't faulty. They got good data about those emissions, and it just was, they chose to fudge it.
It is. So the idea is, if you have the data and you have reliable data and you know the data is pointing towards a faulty part or pointing towards an issue, it's, the morality in you says fix it, really, rather than saying, you know what, we'll just mask the problem. That is, really with CI/CD, continuous delivery, you want to deliver a product to market that is fit for market, not faulty.
Any other questions from the floor?
Yeah, so
Yes.
getting onto the cars point, I mean, there's an interesting question here in what the future of continuous deployment is going to be like. So when we're talking about connected devices like cars, where obviously when there's an error in some cars, it takes ages and they've got to recall them, and then Tesla pushes an update over the wires. What does continuous deployment look like when we have so many different types of mobile devices, so many different sorts of systems, and this may or may not apply to me in my day job? Where does this system evolve when I turn around and go, I don't have an app store in the middle, I don't have an iOS store. How am I collecting data? How am I doing continuous deployment? How am I doing device management at that kind of a level?
Who would like to tackle that?
I suppose just a few comments to that. I think my belief is that all of what we spoke about tonight, your automation, your deployment, your scale, I think the core fundamentals still apply regardless of how broad you are, how many devices you are. I think it's probably more an incentive to make your deployments more standardized across the stack, so almost agnostic of platform, but yet still providing the support at the same time. And I think, to Greg's point, just having that automation built in would just be more and more crucial when the more devices come in as part of the supported platform. I think it might be a good one for Greg to answer, actually.
From a perspective more of the guy who's making the platform, making that device. So more from the side of, if you were the Tesla, or you were the Ford, or you were the provider of the device, and now all of a sudden there's applications going out on top of you, and you're responsible for a section of the stack that all of these devices are going to go on. What does this start to look like if I'm the guy with the device in your home that's controlling your air conditioning, or the person creating that platform for you?
Yeah, I'm not sure that anything really changes from what we currently understand, where we build on top of technologies all the time. So as a technology that's enabling others that are being built on top of, nothing really changes. I think that the need to know more about how your device or how your technology is performing in the wild is really critical. And I think that's where baking into the things that you deliver, information that can come back and then be analysed and assessed, it becomes just mandatory for your business. But another thing I'd say is that to be able to react to the need to change or the need to deal with problems has been forced from a lot of cases back into the hands of the technology managers of organisations, because we're so technology heavily. what continuous delivery does is put that ability to decide to push a change into production and manage the way that change goes into production back into your business owner's hands. And I think that's where the real risk should lie for, we talk about the car problem or the Tesla problem or anything that's got a risk of causing impact to your customers. We have to be able to put that risk in the hands of the business owners to be able to make that decision to push something out, to make a decision about what he's testing and whether something met its criteria to go out there. So I think a lot of things don't really change at all, but the tools and techniques we can bring to bear on these technologies are really evolving rapidly.
Are there any more questions? Because in the meantime, I'll ask the panel to think of a final piece of incredible wisdom about the future of CI/CD to share with all of you that you can take to your clients. But I did just want to take one more real-world example. If Malcolm Turnbull was an app, has he been rushed to market, and what are going to be the consequences? Anybody feel that, if you like? Are there any bugs that are obvious?
I believe there is one big bug in place already. Already in place.
Yes.
And I believe you could see it hovering over his shoulder when the selection for the new PM was made. I believe his successor is already present.
Oh, come on, tell me. You can't keep me in suspense like that.
Oh, Julia Bishop.
Oh, Julie. Not the other bishop, because there's two of them, just like on a chessboard. That's a very good... Great, thank you very much. I'll now just start with you, Grant. If you could give us your pearler of wisdom in closing.
Really, I mean, as I said before, it's not my pearl, but it is relevant. So test everywhere, test often, and what you can test, monitor, and learn from.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Simon.
I would say listen to your customers, listen to your developers, find the happy blend, design the processes, and be consistent. I think the key is consistency to adhering to the processes you put in place to make sure that it's going to be a successful delivery.
Thank you. Mridul.
I think everything is contextual. Don't try to use somebody else's silver bullet in your process. Identify who you work with and use something that fits with them. Because we see so many people trying to, just bash somebody else's successful process into their own environment. Just doesn't work.
Thank you. Alistair.
Well, Renée, you were talking before about a wine application that...
Yes, a free bottle of wine if you go to these restaurants, yes.
Right. That's not an example of fail fast, fail early. I think that's just an example of crap software.
Okay.
And, Agile doesn't get the blame for that. It doesn't really matter what sort of process you're following, you can still produce crap. And I think what Agile and what CI/CD is all about, it's really about risk mitigation and about getting quality out there. So I don't know whether that's a pearl of wisdom, but essentially following these sorts of processes, CI/CD, and buying into it is going to ensure a much better outcome, and you're going to get your bottle of wine.
Oh, thank you. Greg.
Oh, I've got lots of wisdom, but I'll narrow it down. One of my favourite ones at the moment is your cloud transformation can be a technology-driven project that's very difficult to do and very difficult to deliver benefits on. But automation transformation, which depends entirely on cloud, is something that can transform your business. It can enable DevOps. In fact, it's necessary to do DevOps properly, and it can deliver ongoing benefits to your business. So if you're thinking about cloud, think about automation.
Thank you, everyone. There's more food coming and more drinks. Now we move into the networking part of the evening. But please put your hands together and thank our wonderfully generous panel and sponsors, CEVO Australia and Dynatrace. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, you're free to mingle and have some fun. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Renée.
How do we... Is that slide supposed to be up? Not yet. Anyway, please come to the register. Do you want me to change this?